Felicitations, everyone. It is I, Dark Symphony 777, with another fanfiction review. As always, a link to the story will be in the description below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, click on that bell for notifications, and leave a comment in the comment section below on your thoughts of the story. And finally, this is my opinion. My opinion is not indicative of everyone in the world, so please respect that. So, the fanfiction I'm reviewing is actually a two-part story called Something Blue. It's a pair of Starfox Fanfiction by Vic Cutter. These stories are actually pretty old. They're like nearly 15 years old. And I remember this story and wanted to talk about them because of one thing. It's a transformation story, and as y'all know, I'm a sucker for transformation stories. I just like them. Something about them just always entices me. So this story actually takes place over the course of Starfox Adventures and beyond. So around that point, if you don't know what Starfox Adventures is, look it up. I mean, it's not the worst. In my opinion, hot take time, it's not the worst. I don't think it's the worst Starfox game in the series. I honestly think that's Command. I was really not a fan of Command, but Adventure is not that far behind it. I would say this is Command and this is Adventure, and then everything else is just way better. Just way better. Even Star Fox Zero, because even though Star Fox is a reboot of a reboot of a reboot. Yeah, Star Fox has been trying to get out of 64 Shadow forever. But yeah, we're just going to go through the story because this story is really hardly inoffensive. This actually kind of has a similar situation to the last story I reviewed, Wolves and Knights, where it kind of has a lot of the ideas and it kind of comes off half-finished. But this one is more, it has a lot of ideas that it's trying to do, but then the author kind of doesn't really go through with them fully, and it kind of leaves you like wondering why the author did all these things. So let's actually start at the beginning, because the story actually doesn't start at the beginning of Starfox Adventures. The story actually starts after Starfox Adventures, where Fox and Crystal go up to the Grey Fox, and they meet Peppy, Slippy, and Falco. And all of them are just looking at Fox like, Fox, you got some explaining to do. Because Fox turned into a woman. Not just a woman. Fox specifically turned into Crystal. Now this is kind of a semi-twinning situation, because if you don't know what twinning is the process of becoming an exact duplicate of a character you're turning into. But semi-twinning is basically when something is different. So while most of the time they get physical similarities, but they're still their own person. That's basically what happened to Fox. So physically, he turned into Crystal, but mentally, he's still Fox. For all intents and purposes, mentally, he's still Fox. And so then we get to the beginning of Starfox Adventures, where he lands on Saria, I believe that's the name of the planet. And for the most part, the beginning of Adventures plays out, where Fox is trying to figure out where to find the Queen Earthwalker, gets annoyed by some ankylosaur sort of thing. I don't know. I can't remember. It's been so long since I studied dinosaur stuff, so I can't remember what Thorntails were specifically based off of. He finds Crystal's staff. He doesn't actually find it. He finds where the Queen Earthwalker might be, and he's like trying to figure out like, I wonder how strong my ship's plasma lasers will have to be before it breaks through. And what happens is he actually trips over Crystal's staff and actually breaks off one of the ends, and he manages to get it back on, but he breaks it. That's important because that's actually how he transforms into Crystal. Because in the canon, Fox actually, just finds it laying on the ground and he pulls it out. And then he gets the message from Crystal. But in this story, because he specifically tripped over and broke it, the connection kind of came wonky. And so the staff started slowly turning Fox physically into Crystal, so it's like that. So Fox pulls out the staff. He gets the memories of how to use the staff from the staff itself, thanks to, it's linked to Crystal. And then every time when he actually finds a power-up, like specifically a power-up to basically learn how to do more things with the staff, he slowly turns more into Crystal. So it's like sometimes he gets like a little bit of blue, and then he doesn't realize later his hips got wider and he's actually walking with a sway. His nose narrows, his arms narrow. He gets a chest and he loses his male anatomy, and then becomes Crystal. And this story plays out basically like a very Cliff Notes heavy version of Starfox Adventures. Like, the only parts of the story that it plays is when he's talking about, what he's becoming, or parts of the story where he actually gets the power-ups, so he actually see the transformation happening. So he passes, so it doesn't really cover the entire game, because the actual game is, like, actually really long. I'd actually like to see a novelization of Starfox Adventures. I think that'd be really cool. But yeah, it does what it's trying to do well, just sell the situation of Fox transforming into Crystal. He gets some help from the Krazoas. At the end, when he fights General Scales, Fox actually doesn't fight General Scales, which is actually a moment I really actually preferred this version than what actually happened in the game, because in the game, General Scales was kind of like built up as like a big puzzle-esque boss fight, like someone you had to fight. But no, when you actually fight him, all you have to do is, like, you don't even have to swing the staff in his general direction. You just have to, like, just press A, and it just gets to a color cutscene, which is really fucking pathetic. Honestly, I'm gonna call out Rareware for this. That was fucking stupid. That was a cock block of epic proportions. That was just rude. It's just honestly rude. What happened in this story is, early in the story, where Crystal's actually just trying to find information, she comes across a lone sharptail, one of his lone men, and Crystal and Fox is basically just trying to, talk to him. It's like, I don't want to kill you. Just give me the information. I'll let you, just let you go, because she already shown that he killed. He won't hesitate to actually kill other members. The lizard actually panics and, kind of starts talking about how, General Scales treats the entire people like crap, and he's ruling through fear, and he doesn't want to, he really doesn't want to do this. And then, there's a lot of in-betweens. Like, he kind of makes it imply that, they want to rebel, but they're so afraid of him that it's fine. And then when Fox actually says, "Okay, you can go," like, it's fine. I got my information as much as I could. The Scale actually, kind of psychs himself up to fight Fox. Fox actually manages to stun him, and then, since he gave him the information, it's like, "I'll let you live," so like, leave. When Fox goes to fight General Scales, General Scales mistakes him for Crystal. It's like, hey, it's like, oh, we see each other again. And Fox is actually kind of confused because at this time he doesn't know that Crystal met General Scales, so he's like kind of confused. He has his men surround the arena, and they're about to fight, and he basically tells them to hold him. The Sharp Claws actually hold him, but one of them is the person he saved, and they kind of like wink at him, and so they kind of keep him loose. And so when General Scales is about to deliver the final blow to kill Fox, they let him go, and they just bum rush Scales. I think that's more fitting than what we got in canon, because I think that would have worked much better, which kind of brings me back to the main criticism I have with the story of just half-baked stories. Like, half-baked plot lines. Like, the only clue we got with the Sharp Claws being treated is that one conversation. And because of the Cliff Notes heavy version of the story, it kind of comes off as forced, that we didn't really see any build up to it. It just happened, and this kind of happens throughout. And this is the only one that happens in this story. Most of the problems of that happen in the sequel, which we'll get to in a little bit. So, Fox saves Crystal. And the Kurzoa actually tell him and said, we'll give you a choice. We can return you to normal, but Crystal dies. Or Crystal can die, and you more than likely won't turn back. And Fox, being Fox, unflinchingly, unhesitantly says, save her. Because I would rather live like this and see something than know that I couldn't save someone. Which is cool. Which is immediately a cool moment. So they don't hesitate. They save her. Fox thinks they can save him. Then he quickly realizes that they have to go to sleep for like 100 years. So more than likely he can't change. They beat Andros. The story ends with her having to explain with what happened at the beginning, with them going back up, inviting Crystal to live with them, and then we get to the story. So the sequel. The sequel actually happens over the course of a couple weeks, where Fox, now known as Letiza, was basically the name of Crystal's mother, who just decided they came up with a cover story that Fox and Letiza and Crystal are actually related. Letiza they were both abandoned. Crystal went on her own thing. Letiza was actually just adopted, and they met up during the events of Adventures. Pepper knows what's going on. He managed to tell Pepper what happened. It's like, I had to tell like so many stuff that only Fox would know, like stuff about his wife. Which leads to an actually really neat dynamic of how Letiza interacts with the members of the Starfox crew. And and then we get to problem incomplete plot number 2. Despite the fact that a heavy emphasis was focused on the fact that Fox turned specifically into Crystal doesn't really factor into the story, like, at all. Like, that's like, it just comes off as, like, off. It's like, well, okay, I can kind of see that. Because, because at this time, Crystal's still trying to find her way, and since they didn't invite Crystal onto it because there's no relation, because they don't kind of have feelings for each other, so it's like, they can't, it makes no sense for Crystal to join Starfox, especially since at this time, Peppy hasn't retired yet. Excuse me. So yeah, the main bulk of the sequel is just Fox trying to come to terms with the fact that he's still a girl. Like, first story, he transforms into a girl, but it never really impacted because of the simple fact he was still on a mission, so there's other things to worry about. But now that the mission's over, he doesn't know what to do. He's kind of broken mentally because he realized the full ramifications of the fact that, Star Fox is kind of built around Fox, the image of Fox McCloud. It's like, with Fox there, no one's going to hire them, which means they're going to lose money, which means they got to work up their reputation again, and then he has to worry about his now changing dynamics with the rest of the crew, figure out what's going on with Crystal. There was actually a start of a plot point involving journalists over the fact that Fox died, and one, like a raccoon girl, was actually kind of genuinely sympathizing with her, which never got off the ground because nothing past the sequel got written. And there's a whole thing with Star Wolf, possibly Wolf kind of wanting to kind of help her out. That never really gets brought up again, except like near the end. There's a whole thing where Fox's actual piloting skill actually changed because she becomes more reckless, i.e. because she actually kind of fractures to the point where she actually doesn't care, she dies. And even like Falco and Wolf and Peppy kind of try and help her out, but it's really mostly Wolf that just tells her, it's like, you're fucking gonna kill yourself. Anyone can see that, which also leads to like a pretty epic moment where Falco sees it. Like Wolf sees it out like a little earlier, but only hints about it. But Falco kind of nails it on the head, where Aquas is being attacked by raiders. And the Great Fox is actually across the galaxy. They hired Starfox to help out, but the only way they would be able to get to Aquas is through a black hole. Excuse me. So Fox goes. Falco realizing something's going on. Joins Fox. I'm joining you. It's like, no, I'm going alone. No. I'm going with you. No hesitation. And so when Letiza actually goes to space and starts cooking up to it's like, and it's like, you just go back. Falco's like, I already tethered to you. And then Letiza's like, oh, you molders. And Letiza's actually trying to detach the tether from him. It's like, well, I know if you go by yourself, you're more likely going to kill yourself. So, but I know you, which is actually a pretty epic callback to the first story, which he actually, him willingly giving up everything to save Crystal with no hesitation. And Falco used that against him. They try and get through his skull, saying that Star Fox still needs you, that we need you, that even Wolf kind of needs you, because with Fox dead, he needs a rival. So I'm tethering up to you, so that way, because I know if you go to the black hole with me attached to it, you're putting my life at risk too, so I know you will do whatever it takes to protect me. And basically using Fox's mindset against him, which is actually kind of cool because Falco's not doing malicious. He's doing it to basically save Letiza Fox. I'll just start saying Fox. It's so confusing to say Letiza. Basically save Fox from doing a horrible mistake. And that's a really cool moment. And that's a really, really epic moment. The story does end on a cliffhanger because because Slippy says that Slippy's leaving Star Fox because it's like, well, Star Fox is about Fox McCloud, not this Vixen, so I'm leaving. With the fact that Falco is kind of infatuated with Fox, there's too many loose ends, so it's really, really confusing. But I do like the story. Would I recommend it? No, wait, I didn't even get to the characters. I jumped the shark there. I apologize. So, characters. There's really only 2 characters really need to talk about. I really would have wanted to talk about Crystal, but she's, despite the fact the story kind of revolves around her, with Fox turning into her, she's such a bit player, it kind of hurts. So we have Fox. His character for the most part, kind of stays the same in Adventures. He's very snarky. He has kind of like a bullheaded attitude. But over the course of the story, where he actually realizes he's becoming Crystal, you kind of see what's essentially becoming a broken man. And I think that's actually it's a really neat way of taking it, because partway through the first story, Tricky's mother, the Queen Earthwalker, actually kind of knows that something's on Fox's mind, and so basically they kind of have a girl to girl, and Fox kind of lays his heart out like he doesn't know what to do. It's presenting the idea of a broken man who's losing himself, and he doesn't know what's gonna happen. Someone who's so exuding with confidence and bravado. And then seeing him kind of break apart, kind of fracture mentally. And even the fact, in the story, he's like 40, but now he actually de-ages like 20 years. And all the stress of all that's happening. And it's a realistic case of someone becoming something they're not, and not knowing how to handle it. And this actually carries over to the sequel, where a large part of the plot is is basically Fox trying and failing to fix his mental state. Like he's trying to figure out what he can do, like how he's gonna fix everything, and then kind of coming to his own personal prognosis of he can't, and it's presented in a tragically realistic way. Like seeing, like, if the story went more in depth into his mindset, this would have been really, really great. But it only really glosses over. It only really plays a factor. His mindset only really plays a factor in that one part where Falco basically tethers to him as they're going to the black hole. It would have been truly epic to see a deep dive into his proper mindset, what he's thinking, what he's going through, and that honestly would have been something else. I would have loved to see that. I think that would have pushed the story to just completely pretty good heights. Like, it's fine, but as it stands, Fox's character is good. It had the potential to be great. But as it stands right now, it's good. It's fine. And then there's also Falco, who's basically a showboat. He doesn't really show up in the first story. He only really becomes a main character in the sequel. He's basically there to try and help Fox pick up his shattered mind and try and help him fix it. Like, there's a thing where where Letiza and Falco, they're talking about their academy days, like, and Fox actually talks about, it's like, I bet more women than you. It's like, and Falco's like, yeah, but that was because I was too busy betting men. and they're just talking. And you wouldn't think just a simple talk about reminiscing about the past would be a heartfelt moment to try and fix, because that talk also plays a factor in Fox's character of him trying to desperately build himself back up and then collapsing again. It was a really epic moment, and seeing Falco kind of follow Fox's lead of willing to sacrifice himself if it means to help Fox. That's actually really touching. I like Fox and Falco. I love their dynamic. I really think it was a neat dynamic, and I really wish I could have seen more with it. I really wanted this. That's what pains me to say. The fact this series didn't go past 2 stories, because the author had something with Fox and Falco. The author had something with their dynamic, and with the whole Starfox dynamic too. That's nothing to take away from Peppy and Slippy. Like, over the course of the second story, Slippy is like just trying to struggle to stay with Starfox, and he leaves once the Great Fox is fixed because he doesn't want to deal with something that Fox is not. So he represents, that the disgust that Fox became, that I'm no longer dealing with Fox. I'm dealing with someone who's not Fox, and I don't want to deal with that change. So I'm just gonna leave. And then you have Peppy, who's kind of more indifferent. Peppy's more of the grandfather figure at this time. He's like super old, and he just wants, and he's just trying, and while he struggled at first, he quickly kind of, went to sympathize with Fox. Not to the degree of Falco. Like I said, Falco and Fox's dynamic in the sequel is really good. But to the point where he still acts like a father figure to Fox. He's like, hey, girl, guy, you're still Fox to me. I'm gonna try and help you best I can. So Fox's dynamic with the 3 members of Starfox are completely different. Like, you have Falco, who's completely supportive of him. Peppy, who at first didn't know what to do, but ultimately decided to just treat Fox like Fox. And you have Slippy, who's disgusted over the fact that he couldn't he couldn't handle the change, and it's all presented in a realistic way. Despite, and this is saying something because both stories are like 30,000 words each, so getting that much investment in 2 stories that are that short is immaculate. Pacing. Pacing good. Like, nothing wrong with the pacing. The first story, it's literally just a Cliff Notes version of Starfox, so, you know, it cutting a lot. Like, the first 2 chapters start at, like, the very beginning, and then it cuts to when, after Fox meets Tricky, and then, it's just whenever Fox gets the power, so that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. The sequel, it only takes place over the course of a week, I believe. But it's presented, because of how space travel works, it's very fast paced on what it's trying to do. I do wish the second story was a little bit slower, mainly just to try and get into Fox's mindset. But that's it. There's nothing wrong with the sentence structure, nothing wrong with that. Would I recommend it? This is genuinely going to hurt to say this. I really do not want to say this. I can't recommend it. And this genuinely hurts to say, because there's just so many improperly started and ending plot lines throughout both stories, mostly in the second. There's just so many I can't get behind it. It hurts. This honestly hurts to say, because like I said, this story has a lot going for it. And it does do a lot of things right, but but when it comes to trying to start plot lines, the fact that the author never really properly does any of these subplots right, and like with the Sharp Claw one, like you would expect, like, Fox to come up like an extra chapter or two to kind of showcase the Sharp Claw's mistreatment, so that way we can kind of see what they're going through. Like, even in Adventures, it's mostly ambiguous, because we only got really the words of Scales himself, and maybe some words from like other people. It's very, very vague. Like maybe I know in when Fox is in the Cloud Runner Fortress and he's about to race down to get the second Spellstone, Fox actually sneaks up on General Scales. General Scales knows that Fox is there. He grabs a Sharp Claw and puts him in front of the fire line, killing him. That would have been a moment that would have actually better helped that little plot line of his own men kind of dogpiling him. But the fact is, we only got that one conversation, and then having it shown at the very end in a way that kind of makes it come across as like really, really forced, despite the fact that the author tried to make it a plot line. It was so bereft of everything related to trying to create a plot line. It fell apart, and then that carries over heavily into the sequel with like Slippy leaving, the whole thing with the military, with Peppy and Pepper, and the whole thing with the journalist, and Fox's relationship with Crystal. Nothing really feels complete. I think maybe if there was a third story that kind of at least solved some, that basically it finishes some plot lines, I would have recommended it, and it really hurts me to say this. It really hurts to say this. And this stings more than anything else I've done in a while. I think like the last time I was this disappointed in putting not recommending it was Mega Man X from 1 year ago. It hurts. It really hurts. I as much as I would want to recommend these two stories, I can't. Not with the fact that nothing feels accomplished in the story. Everything's just happening with no finality, with no ending. Yeah. Favorite part. I did like Fox and Falco's conversation before they're going to the black hole. If there's one part of the story I at least would say you should at least read, it's that part. You would at least have to read the second story because that happens near the end of that. Other than that, so hard. I mean, if you want to read it, go ahead. Like, I still think, like, as much as I don't want to recommend it, it's still a good enough story that I only can't recommend it because there's just no plot lines that are actually finished, and everything is either rushed through or incomplete. But Fox and Falco's relationship is at least worth looking into because I liked how the author written that. It's good enough that I can at least say go right ahead and their dynamic, the way the author wrote them was really good. Really good. What would I change? Let me get another soda. Because this is going to take a while. It's going to take a bit. So, first things first, because we're not going under the author rewriting it, we're going under the assumption that someone's going to adopt this story and then rewrite it. I honestly think the best solution for the first story is to turn it into an AU novelization. That's going to take a lot of time because Star Fox Adventures is the longest Star Fox game in the franchise. Granted, it won't be as long if you novelize it, because like if you novelize all the stories, then most likely Star Fox 64 would probably be the longest because of the alternate routes. Like, how would you go around it? Because there's so many routes, and the fact to have space travel, you would have to have something to do in between each battle. It's like that would be a mess in and of itself. But with Star Fox Adventures, that would be long too. Because you can give time to give more proper dynamic between Fox and Tricky, and most importantly, get deeper into Fox's mindset. Because I do think the author, Vic Cutter, was completely onto something with keeping the whole semi-twinning element. I think that was genuinely good idea, and by novelizing it, first off, you would be allowed to make more plot lines and have the plot lines like with the Sharp Claw plot line, give us more hints over the fact that General Scales mistreat them horribly, so that way when the Sharp Claw bum rush him at the end, it comes off as more natural, and to give us more, and to give us go more into Fox's slowly shattering mind. Like you can have several inter-equals, like Fox only telling a bit of a story. Like every time when he gets a spellstone, it goes back to the Great Fox, and they're trying to kind of mentally. The rest of Star Fox is trying to mentally catch up with everything going on. Maybe have Crystal kind of interject with doing a brief analysis of the prologue where she fights General Scale's ship and then goes to Krazoa Palace. There is a lot you can do with this story, but the main purpose would be to just slowly read about Fox's slowly deteriorating mental state over the course of him trying to keep it together as best he can. That the author hinted upon it in the first story, but it's just it's just such a genius. It would be so criminal not to dig deeper into that, not to have someone dig deeper into that. And so that story would probably be somewhere between 250 to 400,000 because there would be so much to cover, like general. The sequel wouldn't be as long. I would estimate it probably being around 100 to 150,000. And the fact that we're more given time again to go into Fox's mental state, but also go into everyone else's mental state. Like it switches between points of views, like seeing into the mind of Peppy, into Slippy, into Falco, and even into Dr. Pepper's, like having all the reactions to like seeing what's going like to these changes going on with Fox would actually be very engaging reading, especially Falco, because like I said, the best part of the sequel was Fox and Falco's dynamic between each other in the story. That was actually really well done. They just talked like a bunch. Falco was still brash and still bragging about, I'm swagger, but still trying to help Fox and willing to put his ego aside to try and help Fox pick himself up, realizing that Fox is probably, slowly kind of drifting off the deep end. And maybe introduce the Raccoon Girl as it's her own character arc. Like maybe there's a part in the sequel where Fox asks Crystal's like, I need to find new clothes because my clothes don't fit me anymore. Crystal, they go to like a shop, have it so the Raccoon Girl basically meets them. She's just wandering around. She sees them. She goes inside and just talks to them. Like you can even do like a sort of pseudo socio-political commentary on the state of journalism and clickbait stuff and bias and like there's a lot you can do with the little Raccoon Girl, like her wanting to be I can see her character being someone who wants to genuinely do good in the world of journalism, but she sees how corrupt it is, and she doesn't, and she actually lacks the confidence to try and figure out how to fix it. Like she doesn't know, or even if she doesn't have the confidence to see if one person can fix it. There's a lot you can do with her character, and then also you have the little Mauser. You could have her kind of show up periodically of just being friends with Leticia, the whole purpose of that would be to try and anchor and help out Fox's mental state. Like all these characters, Falco, the Raccoon Girl. I'll call her. You know what? Call the Raccoon Girl Vivian. Call her Vivian. And the Mauser Girl, I believe she does have a name. Call her the name in the story. Have them be friends with Fox, like trying, like in their own way, trying to help Fox center himself. There is a great story buried underneath this. It was just bogged down by the fact that the author made this story so short, and even with it being so short, what we got was still good. That is what hurts about this story. That is what really hurts about this story. Is the fact that even with how short it was, what we got was still really good. We just didn't get the time to see what the author really pushed the envelope. And I think that would be the best way to do this pair of stories. Like just have it be these two stories. Or if you want, you do it like a sequel with like them kind of going into the fallout of Slippy leaving Starfox, them trying to find someone. Maybe start a Wolf. Maybe have like a little friendly rivalry between Falco and Wolf, and maybe Panther over Fox's affections. You never know, because Falco's like bisexual in the story. But before I end it is this: the author was honestly onto something with this story. And it really hurts to say that I can't recommend it, because the author if the author at least extended, or at least extended some of the plot lines and written them better, this would have unhesitantly got a recommendation for me. That's, at the bare minimum, just extend and finish the plot lines. That would have been good enough. Just that would have been good enough. And it really, really hurts. Really, really hurts. But yeah. This has been Dark Symphony 777. I will see you next time, and cut.